Joining me now, Nebraska Senator Ben Sasse, who has introduced the Born Alive Abortion Survivors Act, and we want to talk to him about that, given all of the discussion this week. Welcome, Senator. Good to see you this evening. Thank you for being here tonight.
Good to be here.
I just want to get your reaction to this story that I mentioned at the top of this yearbook page. It's, another one of these situations that gives people a lot of pause, obviously. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, it just doesn't seem like the governor has much regard for human dignity. I mean, 35 years before he's out defending infanticide, which is what he's been doing for the last 48 hours, he's getting dressed up in some racist photo for some racist event. This guy, he doesn't belong in public life. I mean, if you can't say that infanticide is wrong, if you don't know that it's disgusting to be dressing up for this racist event, he doesn't belong in public life.
When you look at this argument and you look at what you have laid down in terms of the bill that you're going to put forth, it is going to force, as you said this week, Senator, every member to say whether or not they are okay with the kind of scenario that Governor Northam talked about. How are you going to do that?
So I don't want to bore your viewers with too much procedure, but we're going to force everybody to come to the floor on Monday night, and I'm going to, by unanimous consent, call up my Born Alive Abortion Survivors Protection Act, which I've been leading the charge on in the Senate for the last 2.5 years. And people are going to have to show the 320 million Americans, our bosses, whether you stand with those little babies that are born in a circumstance like this, or whether you stand with Governor Northam's bizarre defense of fourth trimester abortion. I mean, this is nutty stuff. I mean, there was a time 15 or 20 years ago where the Democratic Party had room for some pro-life people, and Bill Clinton used to say that he wanted abortion to be safe and legal but rare. And now you got Northam on the radio this week literally saying, well, if the baby survives an abortion, somebody could keep her warm for a little bit, and then doctors can have a debate about infanticide as this little girl's cold and alone on a table. It's nuts.
I just can't believe we're having this conversation. I mean, I can't believe, when you talk about, you listen to candidates like Kamala Harris came out, what kind of nation are we? Who are we as a country? That is the question that is going to be before the American people in 2016. And I think that this issue, defines that in such a obviously substantial way. So we're going to watch your vote very closely on Monday night. With regard to the discussion that we were having also about Howard Schultz and the kind of things that he's saying, because he's saying that this kind of stance is so far out of the American mainstream that he feels like there's a place for someone in the middle. And in some ways, it lines up with some of what you have been talking about over the course of the last couple of years as well. And Mark Thiessen wrote about this today. He said both sides have decided that the way to win is no longer to persuade those in the middle, but rather to throw red meat at the hardcore supporters and get them more worked up than those on the other side. Lost in the shuffle are millions of reasonable, persuadable citizens who are left to choose between two unpalatable alternatives. He's saying there's a new class of forgotten men and women, and that's how he described them. What do you think?
Well, so let's distinguish between civics, which is the overarching American stuff, and the policy fights, which should be smaller. So I'm the second or third most conservative voter in the U.S. Senate by voting record, but I don't think either of these political parties really have a long-term plan. So I think we should be talking not about 2019 and 2020. We should be talking about 2030 and 2040. We should be talking about the future of work. We should be talking about the future of war and cyber. We should be talking about whether or not we're passing along an American understanding of the First Amendment to our kids. And frankly, on stuff like this, where you got this governor in Virginia defending infanticide, this shouldn't be Republican versus Democrat. This is just American. This is just human to believe that little babies who survive an abortion, they deserve care and protection. This town, Washington, D.C., is filled with a whole bunch of weirdos who are addicted to screaming all the time. And I think most Americans believe that the architectural, most important stuff we believe ought to unite us all. And one of them is that Governor Northam ought to get the heck out of public life. If he still has a job on Monday morning, Republicans and Democrats ought to get together and go door to door in Virginia and recall that guy. He doesn't belong in public life.
Senator Sasse, thank you very much. Good to see you tonight, sir.
Thanks, Martha.